Hi, so just a very quick hidden gem recommendation. This is Sandman Mystery Theatre by Matt Wagner and Davis on predominantly on the artwork. It's a chunky book, over 1,000 pages, and it collects. I think it's about the first 36 issues of Sandman Mystery Theatre. This came out in the early to mid 90s. It's spun out of the Sandman comic, but this isn't supernatural at all. It's more like a pulp noir character, much more in the vein of the Shadow. Um, Obviously, he's had a resurgence recently with the new six-issue miniseries by Robert Venditti and Riley Rosmo. So if you like that, you will love this. But this is much more adult. Definitely aimed at. It says on here 17 plus, and I would agree on that because some of the storylines are very hard hitting. It deals with very triggering issues as racism, rape, assault, abuse, intolerance, a lot of violence. But it's handled in such a masterful way. I used to collect the floppies when it came out in the 90s, and it is still one of my favourite comics. I'd say it's one of the finest crime comics out there. If you like Gotham Central, you'll love this. I'd say it's actually better than that. I don't think it gets. It's nice that it's getting a bit more recognition now, but I'd say it's as good, or if not better, than a lot of Ed Brubaker's best writing. Matt Wagner excels himself in this. I mean, he proved his chops for doing a good crime comic with Grendel back in the 80s and early 90s, and this is even more elevated than that. This collects the first 36 issues of the Summer Mystery Theatre and the annual as well, and the predominant artist is Guy Davis, who did a lot of work on the other Sandman comic and loads of stuff for Vertigo especially. I think he started though on Caliber, I think it was, with Dead World. But yeah, he's so nice. And what's good about it as well is that the stories, even though there's 36 issues, you don't have to sit down and read it all at once because the stories, each one has 4 issues. So you can just read 4 issues, take a break, read something else, read your weekly comics or whatever, and then dive back in again, which is what I've been doing with this. I'm about halfway through now, and I tend to read about 2 stories a night, so that's 8 issues a night, and you just get so divested in it and so intrigued. And what I like about it, it's not just going on about Wesley Dodds, the Sandman. He's basically like a proto Batman because he's multi-millionaire who's left a lot of money in his father's will, and he uses that to help fight crime. But he's much more pacifistic than Batman, so he doesn't use as much violence. That's why he uses his gas gun. So if you can knock them out that way, that's fine. Then they're much more open to suggestion, and then he can quiz them and find out what's going on. And so he's much more pacifistic. And the great thing about this is his partner. Well, initially she's not his partner. While it's from the first issue, it helps develop this relationship between him and Diane Belmont, who's the district attorney's daughter. And she's a bit of a firecracker for a woman in the 30s and 40s. She's very opinionated, very much her own woman, and it's as much her story as it is his. And as the comic comes on, he keeps it all secret what his other life is, his alter ego, but she works out and pieces it up for herself. And so he lies to her quite a bit initially, but she manages to overcome that, and their relationship becomes even stronger. And on later cases, she actually helps him with the cases. And she's as much a part of being part of the Sandman as he is. So even though he does the crime fighting, she helps him with the research and things like that. And it's the best comic couple in my mind I've seen. It for me. I prefer Diane Belmont and Wesley Dodds over people like say Reed Richards and Sue Storm and Lois Lane and Superman and other famous comic couples. It's just much more realistic, much more naturalistic. They're not perfect. They both do things what drives the other person mad, but that is a much more realistic portrayal of a relationship. And that's just it. It's not just the mysteries and the crime fighting aspects is thrilling. It really is enjoyable. But for me, it's more seeing this great detective duo. Well, it ends up being a duo, solving crimes together. That makes it a really satisfying and meaty read. And it does. I'd say the weakest story is the first storyline, but the first storyline is still brilliant. It's still fantastic. But to say that's the weakest one, and it goes from strength to strength with each storyline, is a great recommendation. I would give this a solid 9 out of 10. The artwork, Guy Davis is the standout artist, and his art is so perfect for period, for drawing like period clothing in the 1930s and 40s. But the fill-in artists are equally as interesting, but he just seems more suited for that time period. Though I'd say another one who is a great in this is John Watkiss, who sadly passed away about 10 years ago, I think. And yeah, so it's got solid art, it's got great storytelling, and it's just a great glimpse of that period of America where everything was so different. Everything was quite bleak, really. There was poverty, there was prohibition, there was violence against people who were gay, violence against people who were black. There's relationships between men and women were very unequal. Women's rights weren't really a thing back then. They were getting there, but they still had a lot of work to do. And so it's a really fascinating glimpse of that. So you've got all that as a backdrop, as well as the mysteries that are going on. And so yeah, do yourself a favour. It's $59.99, but you can get it a lot cheaper. This cost me about £30 when I got it, because I got it on Free Comic Book Day. So maybe when that comes around on May the 4th, normally a lot of comic shops do special offers. Maybe hunt this out. But it's well worth it, because you get 1,000, or just close to 1,000 pages of story, and there's no weak story in it. I couldn't give it a high recommendation. And I love the compendium format as well, because it's not as heavy and burdensome as an omnibus, so it's very easy to just pick up and read on your lap. You don't need to put it on a table or anything like that. So as you can see, I'm holding it with one hand, and I'm puny. I have no muscles, so I highly recommend this. This is one of my favourite reads of the past few years, and I'm so glad I've got it in collected format now, because like I said, I used to read the comic years ago. So yeah, do yourself a favour and buy Sam and Miss Compendium 1. And another reason I want you to buy it is that it'll make DC see the sale figures, and I think, yeah, we'll do a Compendium 2 to collect the rest of the comics. Okay, bye.